So I lost track of this project. It's been a long time since I've recorded, so I'm going to trust that my Kindle remembers where we left off. I don't. I'll have to go back when I save this and review what is happening in the story. Here we go. Guards, he called, letting his voice thunder down the hallways. He strode inside. Fiari sat on the floor where Alicia had shoved him. He scrambled backwards, all flailing legs and hands, like a particularly ungainly crab. The kind of crab that other crabs would pick on and refuse to choose for their team in crab games. It pleased him. I told you I would not be generous the next time, he said mildly. Oh, I could have said that more mildly. Fiari bumped up against the wall, breathing hard. So, what was your plan if you were discovered? Try to tie me up with the magic rope? You should have kept the dart. You might have had a chance. Or did you just think that if Arthanaro did not give you an item for it, the situation would never arise? He paced forward, one slow step at a time, until his toes touched the bottom of Fiari's scrabbling boots. Arthanara would never trust you with something powerful enough to threaten me. Actually, he wished very much to know who Arthanara was, or what she had been thinking. Of course, there must be good wizards somewhere, otherwise no one would say dark wizards. They would just say wizards, and he hadn't even thought of it. Idiot. But no, you came here armored in your own righteousness. You could never fail because you're the hero. Behind him, he could hear feet pounding down the corridor and the jingling of ill-fitted mail. One advantage to a tiny castle. It meant that it didn't take long to summon help. Fiari's eyes widened. Gav took a deep breath, his hands curling at his sides. Please. He glanced aside. The princess stood, one hand outstretched, as if she had thought to touch his sleeve, but hadn't dared. Please, she said. Slowly, without breaking eye contact, she went down on one knee, and then the other. Please don't kill him. You don't even like him, he said, not liking how peevish his voice sounded to his own ears. That doesn't mean I want him to die for me, she replied. Please. I don't have anything to offer you cannot already take, so I'm begging you. He made a show of sighing and relaxing his hands. An awkward sense of relief relaxed the muscles in his chest. He had been starting to be proud of not killing Fiari the first time, and he didn't want to do it now. And he definitely didn't want to do it in front of Alicia, but Fiari was an insufferable ass, and he could not be allowed to leave the castle alive. And he hardly wanted another prisoner to watch over. Killing him would be so much simpler. Part of him envisioned the flames crackling over his flesh, wreathing his skull, flickering from deep in his eye sockets, and salivated. But that part didn't feel like him. It was part of him, but he didn't want it to be. And here was the perfect excuse, looking up at him with big blue eyes. Even if the only reason they were blue was yet more magic. Sirico peered in, and his eyes lit up. It's amazing what people can survive. Gav sighed. No, Sirico. It really would be no trouble, my lord. Sirico, no. Just a few hours, and we'll know exactly how he got in. Sirico's eyes never left Fiari. I already know how he got in, Gav pointed out. Please, whispered the princess. The urgent rage was already draining away, worn down by the carnival that was his life. Maybe the exhaustion was working in his favor. It made it harder to sustain the rage that made it so hard to think. All right, maybe he could make this work for him. Your Highness, you want him alive? You want to learn magic? Consider this your first lesson. Fetch me the vial of blue powder, the sparkly one. The sparkly one from the top left drawer of the cabinet. Make sure you wash your hands before eating anything after that. Throck, my compliments to Orla. Please bring me the chicken bone. A chicken bone. Capon head would be better if she's got it, but any bone will do. Fiari flipped his perfectly shining hair out of his eyes. You'll never get away with this. Gav knew bravado when he saw it, and Fiari had a lot less practice than he did. Still, he kept an eye on him. He had no intention of getting taken down by a cornered rat. Strip, he said. What? Fiari asked, confused. I'm not going to wait for you to try and pull a dagger on me, and the spell's just going to ruin your clothes anyway. I'm sure you care very much about them, so take them off. In front of a lady? I could never be so crude, Fiari said, his eyes flickering over to the princess, who was clearly considering whether or not to follow instructions. See, he doesn't want you here. Gav rolled his eyes and offered her a hand up. For a moment, he thought she might try to pull him down and grapple him herself, but the presence of the guard seemed to dissuade her. She let him pull her to his feet. Let him pull her to her feet. It's not a ruse to get you out of the room so I can do something nefarious. And I should just trust your word on that? Her eyes flashed. Gav thought about it for a moment. Have I ever actually lied to you? Not shaded the truth, and not refused to tell you something. Have I ever actually told you an outright lie? If you had, would I know? She challenged. There was quite a lot he had shaded or refused. Probably not, he puffed out a frustrated breath. This was rather interfering with his fiendish yet acceptably merciful plan. Here are the possibilities. I could be planning to do something permanent and dire. If you stay, there really isn't anything you can do to stop me. If you go, at least you'll be spared having to witness it. I'm not afraid to witness it, she snapped. Yes, I know. You're very brave, he said. But the other possibility is that I have something in mind that will do him no long-term harm, as you requested. But I can only do it with your help. If you choose not to help, well, I really can't just leave him here. If you choose to help, though, you can ensure that he gets to live, and you can start learning the tools that you will need to prevent such things in the future. So, Your Highness, which will it be? He wasn't sure why it was so important to him that she bend to his will on this one matter. Maybe he just wanted to see her give in for once. But maybe it was also a chance to test his theory. Oh, good, I am recording. Did he understand her well enough to get her to do what he needed her to do? She stared into his eyes, searching for something. He didn't know if she found it, but she finally nodded once and turned on her heel. I expect to find him all in one piece when I get back. She had literally nothing she could threaten him with, and yet she still felt the weight of the he still felt the weight of the unspoken threat. He gestured for two of the guards to follow her, mindful of who the more dangerous one of the trio was. More of them kept arriving, excited by the unaccustomed summons. Their mismatched weaponry waved above their heads. He hoped they didn't poke each other by accident. Now, he raised an eyebrow, letting all the disdain he could into his tone. As he thought, the goading worked. Fiari started slowly, reluctantly, to disrobe. Gav made him toss each abandoned piece of equipment and clothing. The magic rope, of course, the assortment of daggers that would have been far more threatening if in the princess's hands, since he hadn't even tried to use them. Good luck charms, a religious symbol that Fiari watched intently as Gav picked it up, before becoming visibly crestfallen that Gav didn't start smoking or screaming as it came into contact with his flesh. A black a black velvet doublet, its pile already crushed past saving by the evening's exertions, black silk stockings, of all things already torn, a courtier's idea of stealth garb, wildly impractical for the actual business of breaking and entering, a gloriously ornate, soft black hat, complete with a bobbing black feather. Gav held that one in his hands for a moment, examining it in bemusement. "Really?" he said, looking up at Fiari. Fiari blushed, but raised his chin. "No gentleman is ever without a proper hat." "Gentlemen don't typically sneak into others' castles at night," he pointed out. "I was honor-bound to save her," Fiari protested. He stood, shivering, his hands cupped around his privates. Still, a fabulous specimen of manhood, if somewhat lacking in dignity now. "That didn't mean that I should lower myself to dress like a common assassin." "You might have done better to lower yourself to hire a common assassin," Gav said, shaking his head. Throck arrived, waving a distressingly familiar rooster head. The cold gravy had congealed too much to drip from the comb. From farther down the corridor, poleaxes and pikes wavered as Alicia tried to weave her way through the crowd. He felt a flush of triumph. She was carrying the vial he had asked for. She looked pale, almost sick. And then again, she had no idea what spell she was aiding. Gav didn't intend to say, though. He wasn't going to ruin the effect just to soothe his prisoner's conscience. Now Fiari's breath came in short, shallow gasps. "What are you going to do?" "My lady forbids me to remove you entirely," Gav said, dripping every last drop of menace from his voice that he could. "But I could not have you interfering in my plans." He took the vial from Alicia's hands, noticing both the tremble and the fact that she still didn't drop the glass. He took Fiari's silk handkerchief and sprinkled a bit of the glittering blue powder onto it. No sense in risking his own clothing, and he certainly was not about to get any of the powder on his skin. He tucked the vial into his pocket. He wanted to see if she would fetch on command, but he didn't trust her enough yet to hand her a weapon he would then show her how to use. He took a deep breath, and then flicked the handkerchief at Fiari, blowing the powder straight into his face. Fiari screamed as his head started to melt like a candle. Alicia caught her breath, but didn't look away, or throw up, which was an excellent sign. Before Fiari's flesh could completely forget its shape, Gav advanced on him, capon head in hand. Fiari was already shorter than him, his increasingly shapeless body melting towards the floor as he moaned in agony. Gav pressed the capon head, beak out, into the center of Fiari's forehead. It absorbed into the man's skin, feathers and flesh running together. He quickly pulled his own fingers free before they could get pulled into the spell as well. The moaning stopped blessedly, as the man's mouth and throat ceased to have the correct shape to force air through. There was a moment of silence in which they could all hear the crackle of bones snapping and reforming before the squawking began. The much smaller body writhed as pin feathers pushed their way from the skin, and then the bedraggled rooster shook itself. It clucked miserably. The capon must have had mange, because the rooster that Fiari had become had rather fewer feathers than one might normally expect. A glorious comb, though, so all that hair had not gone for naught. Alicia stared, wide-eyed. "What have I done?" "It's not permanent," Gav said helpfully. "You turned him into a chicken." "Rooster," Gav said, a bit hurt. "He still has the same sex." The rooster let out a mournful crow. "Oh, get over yourself," Gav snapped. "You can still speak. Stop wallowing." You fiend," said the rooster. Hardly. No one appreciated him. You're safe and sound, no permanent damage. As requested. I'm sure our Arthanaro can quite easily turn you back the next time you cross paths. Even your clothes are fine. The princess looked shaky. So did the rooster. He felt shaky, too, actually. He hadn't been completely certain he could perform that spell, and it would have been rather embarrassing if he had failed. Or messy, which would also have been embarrassing. Plus, he would have broken his promise to Alicia, which he felt irritatingly loath to do. Besides, he'd gone to so much effort now not to kill the man. Now, where can we keep you? He wondered out loud to avoid thinking too hard. Not the hen house. Can't have you escaping or getting eaten by a fox, and I don't think any of us want to think about the ethics involved with any chicks you might sire. Please, begged the rooster, let me stay with her highness and guard her sleep. The princess seemed rather dubious about that plan, and Gav certainly did not like it one bit. No, I think you'll get your own cell, and all the corn you can peck, of course. The princess swallowed. How do I know that you'll keep your word and not dispatch him as soon as he's out of sight? After all the trouble I went to change him in the first place. Really, nobody appreciated him or his work. No one understood how hard it was to be a dark wizard. Fine, you can visit him every morning. Supervised visits only. No conspiring. I have no doubt you will regret the request soon. And that'll do for today. Bye. Nope. Nope.